Finish what you start. Finish what you start. Every endeavor, every undertaking that we or any person takes involves a start and a finish. Finish what you start.
Welcome back to the neighborhood family. I am your favorite neighbor, Jay Murray, and I want to thank you for tuning in, listening to Happy Hood, the podcast. This is where we connect, cultivate, and build a meaningful community that is centered around health, agape, power, institute, happy hood. It is a purpose, lifestyle. What's going on, family? What's going on, neighbors? I am just so excited you decide to join us again for Happy of the Podcast. Finish what you start. This is where we talk to amazing individuals about their how-tos, about their challenges, about their failures, about their experiences that really has helped them to live a purpose lifestyle. And today's guest truly has done that. She is the creator and host of HeartBlend Podcast, where she focuses on emotional care and empowerment for others, especially those that tend to be more sensitive to their surroundings. The podcast started in May of 2020 as a way to put good energy. I'm talking about let's put in good energy back out into the world during a challenge time. The goal of the podcast is to help others understand themselves on a deeper level and to care for their emotions properly. Happy family, let's give a warm welcome to the neighborhood. My dear sister, Miss Lindsey Christian, how you doing?
I'm well, Jay. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm happy for you to be here. She's a local here in the area, so this is really cool here. How you doing this Friday?
I'm well. I'm blessed. I'm happy. I
Yeah,
have no complaints. So
good. Did anyone pull any April Fool jokes on you?
no, I stayed home today, so it wasn't too much anyone could do.
Okay. My my wife and kids try to play one on me, and
Uh-oh,
it didn't work at all.
didn't work.
My daughter talking about I got suspended today for fighting. I was like, girl, stop. Girl,
Like
stop.
now you know.
Yeah, and she was all relaxed and everything, and I was like, stop. That's don't even do that. And because of course my son he'll be 6 next week.
Oh
And he
wow.
just kind of like, Dad, there's a cat at your foot. April Fools. I'm like, okay, dude, you're doing a little bit too much. You're doing a little bit too much. You're doing a little bit too much. But anywho, what's going on, family? Again, I'm so excited that we get to do this again. We get to have these conversations about finish what you start. And as I said before, I think this is going to be truly be a wonderful conversation. One thing that you mentioned, Lindsey, in your in the intro, as I was speaking, that you put together a podcast during challenging times in 2020, and I'm pretty sure we all can remember those challenging times and just different things that we was doing. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from, a little bit about what you do, and how it kind of ties back into the Heart Blend podcast.
It. So I just started recording and like sharing the things that I've actually been passionate about. And the only person I would send it to is my mom. And she was like, you got to keep doing this. And I was like, okay. So I really didn't go in like thinking I want to make a podcast about this and I want this many listeners. And I didn't have any goals. I didn't have any plans or anything. It was just something for me to do just to keep myself not focusing on what was happening.
Yeah.
Right. At that time with the pandemic. And then once we moved to the summer with all the riots, it was just a lot. So that really kept me it was really just for myself, just to express myself and have that platform. But then I started getting other listeners just from different areas of the world. And I was like, okay, my mom was not in Greece. So I know that was not her. Someone's listening. Yeah. And so that just felt really cool to me, that other people were like actually listening to what I was sharing. And then it just started picking up from there, and I couldn't stop, and I haven't stopped. It's almost been 2 years, and it's just become a part of who I am. And it's so rewarding.
It's to your point. It's so rewarding. It's so fulfilling. Because that's when we actually kick things off too, as well, for the podcast. And little did I know, our first episode in January 15th, we did a live podcast at McFly Fresh in Camp North End.
Oh yeah!
Shout out to Dello and Taj, and so we was like, let's go, and then boom, this happened. Challenging times happened, and what I did is I recorded all the podcast episodes in late 2019, and then I started just releasing them, and it was again as I believe, that God was just making a way and just pulling everything in alignment, because even the subject matter and what people was talking about, it was so fitting. It was so fitting at that time. And, when you talk about 2020, and I have talked to a lot of my friends of, like, one of the biggest thing, and I would love to hear your thoughts of just takeaways. Like, what did you learn about yourself during that time, right? And as you was going after this new adventure, this new endeavor, because one thing that I learned during that time was stillness, and the power of stillness. The power of really, when you're still, like, still is an action verb, and it's something that it needs to be doing. You need to do it in order for you to recalibrate. Like, it's there for a reason, just almost like rest. So I would love to hear your thoughts of, as you was doing that in 2020, like, what certain things you learned about yourself?
I think for me, the biggest thing that I learned was just honestly finding my voice and trusting my voice. And it's funny because a lot of times when I was talking or podcasting, it wasn't me. It's me, but I'm channeling, like, God is speaking through me. And so as I'm talking, I'm like getting these epiphanies, like, yes, Lord, So for me, it really helped to bridge a connection within myself and build that strength within me and in God. And so with that, because a lot of times, you run into people, not everybody's on that wavelength. Totally. Surface, so it's like those people are just not going to always be there to have those conversations with, that you can say, yes, like, I'm on top of it. So you'll find them through common interests like this. And so that's not something I had previously, I just kind of felt isolated in a sense of what I was really interested in, as far as like being passionate about just all of what we're talking about today. So it was just nice to be able to feel accepted for something good. It's weird. It's like it's flipped in a sense where the norm is like the opposite of that good energy. And so it's nice to just kind of create that little safe space for yourself. So for me,
it is.
Yeah.
It truly is. I mean, even when you think about like the headlines this week,
yeah,
and I'm not even going to mention, because when I just said the headlines this week, you probably already
know
what I'm talking about, because everyone had opinion about it.
Yeah,
and I think I do know, living in this informational age, it's almost like our responsibility to put out good energy.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, to put out good energy, because there's so much energy that is put out, good, bad, indifferent, that if you're not careful, and that's one thing I had to learn through those periods of COVID is that stillness to understand what I was putting in my body.
Yes.
What I was putting in my mind, what I was reading, what I was taking in. And it was a moment of that stillness that now that I see, and, I thank God for that moment of having that time to really listen to God.
Yes.
And by no means am I religious,
Right. Me either.
I'm a spiritual person, and I truly believe like we have an opportunity to have a relationship with God.
Yes.
And it was so powerful to not be in rush, not to have these things where things was coming at you, information, where you had opportunity like, okay, look, we're in the pandemic. If I keep listening to the news, y'all pretty much saying the same thing.
Yep.
Turn this off and really just kind of like, okay, getting my own. And you kind of mentioned this as you're saying, creating this safe space, right? For people to, as you put it, to discover and understand their emotions in a more proper way. Proper, I think is the word you mentioned. Like what does that mean?
So initially, when I first started the podcast, I was focused on self-love, the relationship with yourself. And that's really important for you to know who you are and to be able to understand that you're not crazy, right? You just got to find your baseline pretty much. And the world will tell you who you are, right? Yeah. So it's really up to you to decide, who you want to be and to stay strong within that and to really figure out who are you. Yeah. And emotions are a big part of, that's what makes us human, our emotions. Yeah. But there's so much misunderstanding around emotions, like they don't mean anything, or you got to control your emotions or whatever. And as I started to learn, it's just like emotions are just guides. That's it. And it's really centered around the stories you're telling yourself, the thoughts that you're having, your belief system, what you're believing, and all of what's on repeat here. But a lot of times people kind of attack or go after the emotions because we see that. We see the expression of that. We feel that. We hear that. So we think, emotions are the problem, when they're negative. But it's what you're saying. So we don't see that. We don't see those thoughts. Sometimes we're not even aware of the thoughts that we're having or our own belief systems or how we're blocking ourselves in some ways. And so I try my best to kind of teach, like, that's where we have to start shifting that perspective instead of attaching the emotions to, something that's not serving us, because you'll kind of get stuck in a sense. But learning that, I learned to honor my emotions instead of trying to suppress them or escape or numb them, and know what they mean, right? So a lot of times when we feel anger, that is an indication that a boundary's been crossed, or we haven't been honored in some way, or we've been violated in some form. Rather, it's even with ourselves. Like maybe we didn't respect ourselves in some way. Somewhere along the lines, we're mad at ourselves. But I think oftentimes, like in our childhood, whenever we are like having those tantrums, or like kids are like having a fit, sometimes they may have been punished for that, or, you might have received some discipline for expressing a negative emotion, or stop crying, whatever. So over time, you learn to kind of like put those emotions and suppress them, but they can have some very detrimental effects when you don't honor them, where they can cause what we say stress, but they can cause like even illness in the body, or just going into depression where you don't address the issues at the time, but then they spiral. And at the end of the day, you can only go but so far until it's just the end. So we don't have to go there. We don't have to go to the deep, dark side of things. We can address them as they come up, but you have to be aware that they're giving you feedback and emotions to tell you, are you on the right track, and what can we do to shift out of that.
It's so true because we may have to talk about the headline because
It's okay. It's cool.
Because it is wrapped around in emotions, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things and again, work in progress, when I went to therapy and I was able to learn different methods to manage my emotions.
Yeah.
And I think and I don't want to stereotype this, but I think it's evidence out there as Black men, especially growing up, we didn't have an opportunity to manage our emotions.
Yeah.
Whether it was we're crying, and it's like, why are you crying, man? And be a man, that we wasn't able to cry. But one thing I learned, and this again, having family, I'm just, you can say what you want, but I love God. When I was able to really understand that I can come boldly to the throne of grace to find mercy. The boldness was coming as I am. And what I mean by that, it was coming to God and say, God, I'm frustrated. I'm angered. I'm angry. I'm scared. I'm this, I'm that. And in those moments, it allowed me to understand, well, what's causing it. Let's zero in to understand, was it to your point? And that's why boundaries is like, I think 2022 or 2020, that's another thing I must say that I have learned, that boundaries are so important. Because I realized years prior, because I didn't have boundaries, I went after a lot of different things that I really had no business doing, or allow a lot of things to come to me that caused, trauma, or, caused me to be angry with something. And it's so true when you think about the boundaries, when you think about, being loyal to yourself, honoring your emotions, what other things, when you think about honoring your emotion, and we may kind of move into like some how-tos. When you are either thinking about it from your own perspective of, discussing this on the podcast, or just different things you have learned throughout the time of discussing it, with others, how do we continue to honor our emotions? I understand we can talk about it. We can find different ways to release it. But are there any other things that we need to do when it comes to honoring our emotions, managing our emotions, that we can do to get better?
Yeah, I think once we understand what each emotion really means, then it will help us be able to honor them a lot more. And the biggest thing that helped me to understand a lot more of what that, like, kind of the guide for them is just that emotional scale of how we are wrapped up. So we have many emotions, right? We have so many, but there's a range. And so the very top emotion is enlightenment, when we are at one with God. So when we're like meditating, we're in that prayer, like we are like in that blissful state. That is when we are at our highest. In a sense, that's really our true form, like our purest state. So a lot of times, like, babies come in the world like in pure bliss, right? But as you go down, we've got joy and peace and happiness and love. And these are all like very high emotions. They feel like amazing. You feel good. And then as you go down, you might get like boredom, neutral, and then you might start getting into some of the lower emotions where you might start feeling like some jealousy or anger, pride. And then it goes lower to, sadness and then shame and guilt. And so understanding that if I'm at the very bottom, if I've done something that has caused me to feel shame, then I know that I just did something completely against my highest good.
Yeah.
So that's to acknowledge for me, like, okay, what emotion am I actually feeling? And that's telling me just how far away I am from getting to that space.
Yeah.
So that's helpful for me to kind of know, like, am I on the right path? Am I not on the right path? But a lot of times people feel like anger might be like the lowest, but it's not. It's to me, like, anger is a very powerful emotion because there's a lot of energy behind it, and you're moving out of a victim state. You know, you're moving out of just allowing for life to just happen to you. You're not taking any responsibility. You may not do the best thing out of that anger, but it is you shifting out of feeling like, you know, you're so ashamed or you're a victim or whatever. I think the key part to honoring your emotions is not getting stuck in the emotions. Like, not getting stuck and judging yourself for feeling the emotion. So that's the thing. Like, you can shift out of the emotions very quickly as soon as you just acknowledge them and just say, okay, I'm feeling this. Let me sit in it for a moment. Okay. You know, and move forward. But when you start judging yourself, like, I shouldn't have got mad. Oh man, now I'm a bad person. They think, you know, you're going to get stuck in it. And that's not honoring your emotions.
No, I mean, I think to your point is don't get stuck in it. You know? That's like, it's truly okay to be angry.
Yeah.
It's okay to be disappointed.
Sad.
It's okay to feel these things. And I think one of the biggest things that I had to learn is processing your emotions. You know, like, one thing that I don't know, well, I do know we may not do a good job. And I know I don't always do a good job of this, of feeling angry, but then quickly leaving to another place, right? Without fully processing that anger, right? So it's almost like don't get stuck there, but yet also practice stillness, you know, to understand, like, you need to sit in this for a moment.
Yeah.
You know, and that part there, especially when you think about like things that may have been trauma to you, that is totally hard to do because I'll be honest, going back to work, and I haven't went back to work yet, you know.
Wow. Wow.
It's coming. All right. It's
coming. It is.
And I'm preparing myself, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
Because like I'm understanding, like, man, like 2020 was a very traumatic experience. Yeah. You know, and this safe place, that I have created at the house, I don't want to leave. Yeah. But I understand I can't stay here. Yeah. You know, I can't stay here. And that's like an example of thinking about like getting stuck because of the thoughts that I have now thought about, or the thoughts when I think about work and going back into a place of work. I'm thinking back to 2020 when that Friday, go home. And like, oh, okay, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Huh, ain't been back in 2 years. Exactly. You know, we were back in 2 years. Yeah. So, and you want me to go back and adjust back to this, and that adjustment to get my emotions back into it. Like I found myself like, oh, this feels uncomfortable. You know, this feels uncomfortable. So I love what you say, not getting stuck in it, but at the same time, we do have to sit in it for a moment, right? To really allow our emotions to process. I'm curious to know, with your like learning about emotions, and as you talk about, like, what's the best book you read about, you know, when it comes to emotions, or that really help you to gain a better perspective of dealing with your emotions or different things in that nature?
You know, I think that it's a combination of sometimes when I feel something and I haven't fully explored that emotion, I will just Google like the emotion, right? I'll kind of just Google a little bit more the emotion. And it was interesting because I always thought the word resentment meant like deep anger. That's what I thought it meant. It doesn't mean that. It means to like keep repeating the same story over and over again. And so I actually learned that just from watching like just different YouTube videos. That's another place. I watch a lot of YouTube videos on like emotions and frequencies and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, oh, wow. So once I learned that, I figured that out, I was like, so I need to stop telling myself the same story. It's make me mad, you know? I mean, a lot of times we do tend to repeat the same story when we are feeling a negative emotion, like because we're stuck in it, we haven't processed it. But it was helpful for me, like you said, like sitting in it. Just a few days ago, that was the first time I really, like I was angry. And I was like, you're going to be angry and you're going to sit in the anger. And you're going to sit there. I don't care if it's like 5 hours. Just be angry. No, keep yourself in a safe space. Like you don't want to like go around, you know, emotionally damaging other people or anything like that.
You don't want to go around smacking, right?
No, you don't want to be smacking folks. Like that's not the answer. Okay. That's not the answer. But just sitting in it and just like, what are you feeling? Yeah. Why are you feeling that? Journaling. So journaling is huge for me. Like I think I'm on journal number 11 now, which I started about 7 years ago, my journaling journey, if you will. Get it out. Like, don't just leave it in here. Get it out. Like when you can, even just talking to yourself, talk it out. Get it out. Express it.
Talk to yourself.
Talk. Yeah. Go in the car and just talk. Or just talk to God about it. Either way, get it out. Just get it out. And that's why I share with people like, look, I go to God with whatever I'm feeling. If I'm crying, if I'm, God, what is this? What is going on? Like, I got to get it out. But very quickly, shortly after I have fully gotten it out, I will receive the answer that brings me that peace. Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. That's the beauty thing about it where, and again, I say this because I grew up, I'm a PK. I'm a preacher kid. So I grew up in the church. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes church, we get wrapped around the traditions, culture. And it wasn't until I started really understanding and reading on my own and understanding I had a relationship of God of my own. Yes. That I started realizing, oh, man, I can come to you feeling like straight cussing. Yeah. Like, straight, like, you know, like I'm tired of this. You know, like, exactly. Oh, I can do that. And you still like talk back. Okay, like that's okay, This is good. So it's so true to go in that area. To your point, and I want to touch on to your point when you was your journal. Yeah. Because I think one of the most powerful things that I overlooked was writing, but going back and reading it. Yes. Oh, wow. Like going back and reading, like, and it's part of it is like, wow, man, you was thinking about that? Like, bro, you was looking on that? You know, and then part of it's like, wow, man, I have really grown. Yes. Look at, like, I have really grown. Yeah. You know, and then other parts is like, I need to remind myself that. Yes. Like, I to your point, like, man, I was dropping gems. Like, where this dude at? You know, like, whoa, okay. And it is so powerful to journal, to write down your thoughts. And I think one of the best things, again, work in progress, sometimes I want to do it in a very grammatical way. And I'm like, man, just get it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just get out. And something I wrote, like, okay, I missed some things there, but you can feel it. Like you can feel the emotion that you was feeling at that time. And that's the beauty of it. That's truly the beauty of it. So you say you look at YouTube videos and read different articles, in which I never think about just Googling things. Like Google is so powerful. Like Google this emotion that you feeling, you know. And I do have one quick question. How was you able to pinpoint that you was feeling resentment? Was it something that you like through practice, or like how would you understand that, hey, I'm feeling like the core of my feeling, I may have feeling like anger, but the core of it is like I'm feeling resentment. Like, how did you figure that out, or what you do to figure something like that out?
Once I learned what resentment meant, and it just came to me. I wasn't even looking it up. It just came to me. I was listening to something totally unrelated. And the person was like, by the way, if people are feeling resentment, that actually means to rescind, like you are repeating the same story. You're rescinding the same message back to yourself. And I was like, wow. Oh, so then once I realized that, I'm aware of what's going on in here. I'm like, you're telling yourself that same old story, and that's why you're stuck. That's why, like, if you feel stuck, if you feel like you can't get out of something and it's sort of centered around that same topic or with that person or whatever, it's resentment. Like if you keep replaying what that person said to you or how you felt about it, you're resenting that experience. And so now that I'm aware of that, I can catch myself. It's like, girl, that happened 2 weeks ago. It's over. Like, it does not exist. Stop. Like, because the thing is like the more that you keep replaying something in your mind, the more it's going to just show up for you in your life. Yeah. So you're going to get real stuck.
You start. Yeah. So one quick question, not a quick question, but to talk about the podcast.
Yeah, sure.
HeartBlend Podcast. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the name. Like, why HeartBlend?
So I was actually meditating and I asked God and I was like, okay, God, hook me up. What's the name going to be?
Go ahead, throw it on me now.
Come on, hook me up, and it was like HeartBlend. And I was like, okay. And I like looked it up and I was like, does anybody else have this name? And nobody else had the name. And I was like, okay, cool. But then after I got a moment to process it, I was like, oh, that makes total sense, because the first thing that's ever created is our heart. Our heart is created before our brain. So the heart is the center of everything. Like that's where, emotions are held in your heart, your feelings, love, all of that is with the heart. Yeah. And so with it being HeartBlend, it's like, blending all these other areas of your life through that love filter, if you will, kind of. And sometimes the heart isn't right. Sometimes the heart is broken. The heart, feels a lot of grief or whatever's going on with that heart. But, once you can clear that out, your life just opens up for you in so many ways. Yeah.
Now, in a recent post, you had pretty much some topics that you will be discussing on your podcast. So talk to a little bit about the topics that you discover, or the topics that you discuss, on the podcast.
Yeah, sure. So every month is a new topic. That's just kind of the format I created, where it's like 2 episodes a week, where I want to not just touch on something lightly and then move on to something else. I really want the audience to have the deepest understanding of whatever the topic is. And then at the end, close it off with a guided meditation to help seal in that information to your subconscious mind so that it sticks with you. And just having that on repeat. So a lot of the topics that I cover are often centered around the self and you can talk about the self forever. Like there's so much tied to that. But really helping people to either learn more about who they are as a person and understand themselves. And there's so many topics around that, or learning how to understand their emotions, why they may feel a certain way, or coming from a place of empowerment and shifting your mindset for one that serves you and doesn't sabotage you. So sometimes we need a little guidance in that area because we don't know. We don't always have all the tools to work with. And I'm still learning, it's like, I'm not even the same person I was last week. So, we're always growing and learning. So it's helpful to have that.
Yeah, you definitely have that growth mindset.
Yeah.
In which you have to have that. And I like how you put it, like, I'm not the same person I was a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you really think about that, it's like, that's accepting growth,
mm-hmm.
And that's another word that I had to really get a better understanding of, especially in 2020, accept. It's moving me from denial. It's a shift. It's a paradigm shift in your mental for me.
Yeah.
To understand, okay, I'm accepting myself as being angry. Like I accept I'm hurting. I accept I'm scared, right? And once I was able to accept that, I was able to have an understanding to sit in it, and not be afraid of it. To go up to fear almost eye to eye and say like, why am I scared? It was like, oh, it was just an illusion.
Yes.
It was false evidence appearing real.
Yes. It's always an illusion.
It was just an illusion.
Yes.
And those things there, as I try to teach it to my son, is one thing that I really have when you're talking about growth and when you're talking about how to continue to honor your emotions.
Yeah.
Is having that level of acceptance.
Yes.
It's a beautiful transition to get you over on the other side of it, to see the bigger picture of it, know. So I definitely appreciate you mentioned that. So HeartBlend Podcast, what's next? And anything you have that you're working on that will be coming out soon, or, anything that you feel that you're looking the HeartBlend Podcast to do, like your vision?
Yeah, I definitely want to start putting out maybe some courses centered around shifting your mindset on a specific topic or emotional care, where we can go in deeper on each emotion. Now there's a lot of emotions, and I'm going to cover every single one of them, but that's a lot of classes. But I think it's important so that we are not so scared of our emotions and like freaked out, or like, why do we have them, or trying to cover them up, or punishing ourselves unnecessarily for feeling emotions. I think that's the biggest thing. I just want people to stop, no, like, don't talk, don't judge yourself for feeling. Like, it's meant to serve you, not hurt you.
Exactly. I just got to share this because you're talking about enlightenment.
Yeah.
I was recently enlightened, or I was enlightening, had an enlightenment spirit. Enlightened experience. I'll get it right soon. And it was around the Bible. And one of the things that I didn't really, I guess, understand at the time is when Adam and Eve, when sin came into the world, and when God asked Adam, where are you? And it wasn't until I heard other discussions on it and this preacher talking about it, that it was like the first therapy question ever to be asked. Because what Adam and Eve was doing, like, they was hiding because they felt shameful. Now that their eyes are open.
Yeah.
And now you having God asking Adam, where are you? Not to understand his physical location, but to understand his mental.
Yeah.
You know, his emotion. Because he was feeling shameful. So he said, God, I hid because I was afraid you would see me naked. You know what I'm saying? I was afraid.
I made you. What are you talking about?
Yeah, like what you talk exactly. But that's the part to your point of the shame that we feel, that we don't allow ourselves to process it, right? And that was the thing. Again, I just wanted to share that because as you was talking about it, it kept coming up. So hopefully it will help someone to understand that, again, you can come to God busted,
vulnerable,
you know, messed up from the flow up.
Don't matter.
It don't matter. It don't matter at all, you know.
Yeah.
So we're gonna end with this, and it's our question again, going back to finish what you start. How would you define, or what does it mean to you to finish what you start?
Absolutely. So, for me, I think the biggest thing is to ask yourself why. Like, what is your why? And once you know your why, you have that to come back to, because you're going to be challenged, you know, especially when you're starting something new and it hasn't become a part of your identity just yet. You're going to get a lot of challenges. You're going to have things come up that'll distract you. But you're going to be pulled back in and be like, I didn't do it, you know. So remember your why. And once you know your why, that'll bring you back whenever you feel like you're straying away. But when you get started, and once you get to that place of not just finishing it, but continuing it, growing within it, nurturing that, you find that it opens you up so much more. So it's there for a reason. If you feel like this pull, this desire to do something, to contribute, it's sent there from God. It's there. It's your gift that's there to open you up to expand yourself more from where you are in your present space.
Happy family. Lindsey Christian, the host and creator of HeartBlend Podcast. I want to thank our guests for joining us today. Happy family, do me a favor, be strong and understand that you was created for greatness. And no matter what life brings you, always love God, love self, and love your neighbor. I'm your favorite neighbor, Jay Murray. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank my guest again, Lindsey Christian. Thank you for sharing all your thoughts. Definitely go check her out. Hey, give us some of your handles.
HeartBlend Host on Instagram or Twitter, but I'm mostly on Instagram.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy family. Be blessed.